Hi guys, I'm Kay Spivey. Let's talk about the Supreme Court ruling. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not like that caught up in all of it. I just, in general, I'm obviously furious that one of the few protections that women had in this country is being stripped away. I don't have like a script or anything. I don't have a plan. I just kind of want to talk about this and get it off my chest because obviously like it's a horrible thing. It has a lot of horrible implications, and we live in a system where something like this that affects so many people can be decided by such a small number of people, and people who aren't taking into account like just so many factors. And there's so much information online that you can get, like why abortions are important for women, not necessarily who like just don't want to have a baby right now, for an enormous number of medical reasons that maybe you've never thought about before. Why just having access to basic health care for women and choices over our bodies is so vital to like a thriving economy. It's just nobody else's business. It's just that's really what it comes down to, is that it's a medical procedure, it's a medical decision. It literally is nobody else's business. Do you realize any person, your next door neighbor, your mom, okay, let's talk about it this way. Your mom may have had an abortion and not told you about it. Your mom may have had miscarriages and not told you about it. Your sister may have had an abortion and not told you about it. This is something that is so common. A miscarriage also, but abortions are so common. So many women have them for various reasons. For health reasons, for choice reasons, for so many reasons. You don't get to know about that. It has nothing to do with you. Someone else's abortion literally has no impact on you. None. Has no impact on anyone else. The only person it has an impact on is the person who actually is getting the medical procedure done. Does it bother you when someone gets their tonsils taken out? Like, is appendix surgery against your religion? Like, it's the exact same thing. And I can't even wrap my head around someone it's exactly Supreme Court decided to uphold was that there is no longer a separation of church and state. They're just saying X on the separation of church and state, no longer a constitutional amendment, which means none of the amendments really matter. So let's just get the fuck out with the Second Amendment as well, right? Because there's no separation of church and state, and that's also guaranteed. So if we're just getting rid of things, let's get rid of that one as well. Let's get rid of a whole bunch of them. Let's just start over. That aside, this is exactly like the religion professor, in heavy quotes, that I had in college, who couldn't, for the life of him, wrap his head around the fact that the universe, like some part of the universe, could have always existed and then just like exploded. He said that was absolutely impossible. There's no way. But could wrap his head around the fact that God had always existed. I was like, well, if God and the universe, if you just think of them as the same thing, the initial thing, and then it goes from there. But he was like, absolutely not. Nothing existed. Nothing. And God created it. You're like, well, then God existed. And he just couldn't get past that. Okay, that is exactly the same thing as the group of cells that initially come together that will someday be a baby, and your appendix, those groups of cells. Those are the same thing. They're not exactly the same cells, but that's the same concept. You don't want that in your body anymore. It's causing you harm. You take it out. That's simple. Like, your tonsils, and actually your appendix isn't doing anything, so that was a good example, but your tonsils are doing more for you. And how many people do you know have their tonsils out? Probably the same number of people that you know who've had an abortion. It's so common, and it's none of your business. But to me, the things that like legislature should protect, or the person who legislature should protect, is the person who stands to be harmed the most by something. So like with a car, the person who could be harmed the most by you driving a car is the person you hit with your car, or the passengers in the back seat when you hit something with your car. Like, if you're driving a car and you're responsible for it, the other people could stand to gain the most damage from you. Or like with a gun, the person who can stand to gain the most harm to them from you firing a gun is the person you shoot with your gun. So those are the people who need protection by legislature. Like, you have to protect the people who stand to gain the most harm When it comes to pregnancy, the person who stands to gain the most harm is the host body. The mother stands to gain the most harm. And I know that some crazy conservatives will say that no, it's the unborn life that stands to gain the most because their life will be cut short. And that's because those people are taking that group of cells, that's all it is. When it's first conceived, it is a grouping of cells, and yeah, maybe there will eventually be a baby. More cells will be grown from the host body to create that life, but it's still just a group of cells, and they will say that that group of cells stands to gain more harm than the woman who is already conscious and living. The baby is not yet. The grouping of cells, the zygote is not yet, but the conscious woman stands to gain more harm than the loss of life, if we wish to call it that, which they do. They always go back to, oh no, the baby dying would be the worst thing. Well, is it worse than the mother dying? And they will say yes, and the answer is no. That's not even a question. The mother dying because of no access to an abortion is the worst thing. She is the one. The host body is the one. The mother, the one having the baby, is the one who stands to gain the most harm. Most complications. Pregnancy is not only messy, it's painful, it's outrageous, it's crazy. Why people do it? The more you look into it and all of the things that can go wrong and all of the things that happen in the body area, it's insane. Like, that we do this is insane. But we do. And we shouldn't be forced to because it's crazy. And so the only legislature that should have anything to do with this medical procedure should have to do with protecting the woman because she stands to gain the most harm. And that is my hard stance on that. Like, I'm not even here to fight anybody about it. That's my hard stance on it. The person who stands to gain the most harm is the mother, and she should be protected. He or they. Like, anyone who has reproductive organs and is having a baby, they stand to gain the most harm. They should be protected. And that should be a universal thing. And your religion should have nothing to do with it. Your nosiness should have nothing to do with it. Like, it is a medical procedure and it drives me absolutely insane. That's my stance on it. It just sucks that we live in a world where Supreme Court, that we have seen this coming. This was the plan, the Trump administration era's plan, even like the Republican Party's plan through the Obama era, probably before that, has always been that this has always been the end goal. Probably from the moment Roe v. Wade passed, this has been the Republican Party end goal. Not been hard to see coming. I've known it was coming. It just sucks that it did happen, you know? It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, the train was always gonna crash, but you know, there were a lot of places where many people could have stopped it from happening, and yet we kept watching, and we're like, man, it'd be great if someone would just stop this crash in advance, and they didn't, and then it crashed, and we're like, yeah, that was about what was gonna happen given the circumstances. You know, it's like that. It's like watching that happen on TV and just being like, man, there are a lot of people who could have solved this problem, and now a lot of people will be dead because of it. Isn't that fun? You just watched a bunch of people die in slow motion. And we're about to watch a lot of people die. Some of them not in slow motion, because it can be really awful to not be able to get the medical procedures that you need when you need them for your health and safety. Health can include mental health too. This Supreme Court that, frankly, there's at least 2 justices who shouldn't get a vote because they were put on by a president whose entire administration is continuously being found guilty of things that are sus enough that anybody who he appointed to any kind of official position should at least be on, like, administrative leave. Like, logically, shouldn't we found enough people guilty of some things that, let's be honest, were a bit more heinous than just slap on the wrist kind of things. There's enough guilt being found that anybody he appointed should be under investigation or should be on some kind of administrative leave. It just seems logical to me. This would happen in any other conceivable field. So there's at least 2 justices who shouldn't be working right now, shouldn't have gotten a vote, who did vote to take this down. And that's crazy. All the justices who voted to overturn Roe v. Wade. I wish them a very bad rest of their life, but some of them just shouldn't have been there at all. And it's crazy. And it makes me really angry. And you know, there's like, anger is a really healthy emotion. Anger is one of the stages of grief, and it's a way we process and get through things, and it's a way we take action. Like, anger can be so vital and good. And the problem is, people will try to gaslight or distract you from the really important places your anger needs to go. Like, to the Supreme Court, we should be angry. To the government and the structure of our government that allowed for this to happen, that allowed for this to take place in the first place, that continues to allow for more and more potential harm to be targeted towards more and more at-risk communities, who continue to put only the interests of themselves and other rich white middle-aged men at the forefront of everything. Angry middle-aged white men are the sole focus of our government, and that they put so many layers in place to allow for that. Like, I can vote all I want in my own state, and that doesn't even like affect the people who are causing most of the issue. Like, I can't do anything about Mitch McConnell myself. I've done everything in my physical power of voting to do, because there are 2 Democratic senators in my state. That's the most I can do against him, is vote for these 2 people, who then have to stand against all of the other states, and they can't bring him down on theirs. There's nothing I can do to stop Mitch McConnell. You know, like, there's nothing that I can do. It's out of my power entirely. That's crazy. We're all at the mercy of the few people who voted for him. How, like, I mean, there's nothing we can do that's set up in our government other than, like, I don't know. And you know, we're not like saying that violence is the answer, but we're also saying, have we tried everything else yet? Because it's starting to feel that way. I am saying though, maybe we could make some of these people's lives a little more hellish. Like, some people really do not deserve any respect. I think anger can be really quickly and easily misplaced. And I think people are going to try and misplace your anger from the really important places it needs to be, down to like stupid arguments. Like, it's not helpful to just be mad at someone on Twitter, you know? It's not helpful, and it's not only not helpful, but not worth your time to, like, let's say, be upset with your neighbor who maybe is very like pro-life, who's very anti-abortion, who at some point in her youth suffered a horrible miscarriage and has forever since mourned that child, and it has led them to be very anti-abortion. Like, that, there's nothing good that can come from focusing your anger at that person. Like, they are allowed to grieve in their own way. You're still allowed to be angry. And I think we need to be more angry and just keep showing our anger, because man, something's got to break, right? Like, something has to change. It felt like we were like at this point, like something had to break, and then COVID happened. It was like, whoa, did everything just break? And oh God, so many people died, and it still feels like all of this death and all of this change and all of these like totally different circumstances led us right back to that position we were in where something had to break. And it's so weird that it was just like, oh, we're just gonna bounce back. Like, there's this culture that's obsessed with bouncing back, and so, like, we did, and it's worse. Like, something has to break again, it feels like something, it can't keep going this way. I think I work with a coworker, like, it's not sustainable for gas to be $6 a gallon. Like, who can continuously do that? Like, for milk at the store to be as expensive as it is, I don't know how expensive the milk is. Sorry, it was just another quick example. Don't drink milk anymore. Can't. Like, it's not a sustainable model. Like, something is going to collapse, something is going to break. We keep trying to make this thing that wasn't working work, because, I don't know, we're all crazy. Something, like, we're all a little stupid. We want to idealize life, but we should just be allowed to get angry about it, and to get angry with the right parties about it. The parties that have been failing us from the start. We should be allowed to. That's my thoughts. there are resources to help people. Like, luckily I happen to live in a state where the laws around abortion are not going to change anytime soon. Obviously that's not guaranteed anymore. They are not going to always be safe. Just this has shown us that nothing is safe anywhere. Washington is one of the states where we're not going to see immediate change. There are a lot of places where they are going to see immediate change. There are a lot of systems out there. If you're in one of the states where things have already become very dangerous for someone who is in need of medical procedure, be very, very careful and cautious where you get your information from. Be very, very careful and cautious when you have to leave your state for medical procedures, and be very, I don't know, like, you can't trust anyone. You can't trust the internet. It's become very unsafe, and I hope that people who need help are able to get help, and I hope that the right information and the right resources can get to the right people at the right time. And I know that's not that realistic of a wish given the circumstances. There will be deaths because of this. There will be a lot of deaths because of this, and it's horrible, and it almost feels very numb because we've been seeing so much death for so long now. Like, the numbers for COVID don't even seem real, and yet all of these other things have popped up, like in relation to it, despite it, like all of these other deaths. And so we have this unreal, unimaginable number of people who have died, and then all these other deaths that have just been cropping up due to anti-vaxxers and rises in violence, rises in hate crimes. The world's gonna collapse at some point. So that's kind of just my thoughts. I don't really have like a plan or action for you or anything. Like, if you need help, I am kind of a cautious person, but I can try and do what I can to help you. I'm not great about when people like roll into my DMs or even my emails. I'm not always that good at replying, but if you need help, you can reach out to me, and I'll try to pay more attention and try to reach back, because like these things, it is important, and I'll try to do what I can to help. Because again, I live in a state where you can still get abortions, and if you're someone who needs help, like I can see if I can help. I can try and help. Yeah, I'm gonna simultaneously post a video of me reading a poem from my new book, my new poetry collection, A Bottle of Stars, and it's an angry poem, one of the stages of grief, because the collection goes through the stages of grief. One of them is anger, and I guess, like I said, anger is very healthy. It's a very necessary emotion. And I actually wrote quite a few poems as we saw this happening, as like Kavanaugh was signed in, and when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died and it became very, very clear like how much there was to lose. I wrote a series of poems basically on this theme. I'm gonna post a reading of one of them. I'm not gonna include it on this video because I don't think this video is really that type of content. It just is so frustrating that people feel that they get to be nosy in other people's like really, really personal business. Like, why do people think it's okay to try and control something that just has no impact on them? Like, literally, the number of people you know who've had an abortion is a lot. And you don't get to know who those people are when they happen. Like, you don't get to know about that because it was a personal thing and they didn't tell you. I've had to make a decision about an abortion before, okay? And it was a good decision. And the decision and the help I got at the time is going to allow me to have children again later. Part of that's because I'm an O-negative blood type, and we were able to do things at that time with that decision being made that will allow me to have children without complications that come with being an O-negative blood type, such as your body just attacking and rejecting the baby, which is a normal thing that happens with my blood type. It's something that women who don't know their blood type can find out really quickly when they have horrible miscarriages. So there's a lot of factors that go into decisions that you don't get to know about, and you never should. And there should always be protection for women to be allowed to do these things that people like to throw their religion at and try to stop them due to their religious beliefs, which should never have a place in the medical field. Your choice with what to do with your own body should always be your choice. You should get to look the way you want, you should get to feel the way you want, and you should get to do the things you want with your body when you want it, and not be forced to do anything with your body that you don't want to do that would harm you. And it sucks that that isn't the case. That's all for me today. Like, good luck.